Welcome to the St. Augustine Chronicles podcast. I'm Karen Zander. The St. Augustine Chronicles podcast is about the where, the who, and the how did they get there in St. Augustine. So interesting stories, interesting places, interesting people, just cool things that you won't read in a travel brochure. I'm so happy today to welcome Brendan Schneck. Brendan and I have known each other for a while.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you in. So Brendan is a man who wears many hats, and he owns Big Island Bowls food truck, Riptide Barbecue food truck, the Village Garden food truck park, and at one point you had an iced tea company, right?
We did, the Florida Tea Company. We did yerba mate tea. It's a tea from Argentina. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So Brendan hasn't lived here his whole life, but to me, he's really an interesting story because he's done something that was a little bit outside of the norm, and he really had to persevere to get there to make that happen. So I want to share a little bit about how he got here, and then we'll talk about how he accomplished what he did in St. Augustine, which I think is just a cool thing for everybody. That food truck park is so cool, and it's so successful. So you didn't grow up here. Where are you from?
No, I'm from New York originally, Long Island.
And how does one get from Long Island to St. Augustine?
Well, pretty much. I went to Flagler College. I Googled schools that are on the coast.
I don't think you're alone.
No. I'd actually never visited here. I didn't know anything about it, and I got accepted. And first day, my parents took me down here, and I just fell in love. And I knew this was the place.
So wait, you came before? Did you visit before you accepted?
Never visited. No, just on a whim. And it really was. It was better than I could have possibly planned it to be. And I've lived downtown first in the dorms, but I really fell in love with the beach, and that's when I decided this was the place forever.
So you graduated from Flagler?
Yeah,
right?
me and my wife met at Flagler College. We were both business admin majors and met in classes, and then we kind of stayed in touch. We were friends for 4 years before we started dating, and it kind of started from there, I guess.
And your wife, Kelly, is she from this area?
She's from Orange Park, Jacksonville area.
Yeah. Is it her uncle that's Tommy Hazori?
Yeah, that's her uncle.
Yeah. Is he the chair of the Jacksonville City Council? Maybe
the Hazuris are a big family. They're Lebanese. She's got I think 30 aunts and uncles, and I've met almost all of them, but it's tough to keep track. Yeah.
So do you get really good tabbouleh at your house?
They do have really good food.
What about kibbe?
They're really good cooks. We always go there for Thanksgiving every year.
My favordon't is kibbe. I love that.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not pronouncing it right. Well, I hope her family in Lebanon itself is okay now.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you went to Flagler College and got your degree here.
Yep.
And then you didn't stay here, did you?
No, we actually moved to Hawaii. Me and my wife, we kind of got into the whole food aspect of things. We worked on a farm in Hawaii, and it was a farm for at-risk youth that taught a whole foods diet. So pretty much we would take these kids and rehab them through growing their own food, and then they'd cook their own food on the farm, and kind of like exposed me personally to eating healthier. And like kind of what you put in your body is what feeds the person that you are. The whole thing's connected pretty much.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. Typical wilderness therapy is you take the kids and you hike them. So you hike them for 3 or 4 months out in the wilderness. But our camp was based off of gardening. So it was you take the kids and you have a plot of land that you work the land, and you kind of teach them. We taught them the Hawaiian story, the story of the
more
trout.
of a spiritual thing.
Yeah, through gardening. So that was it was really cool, and it really taught us a lot about ourselves. As the kids are going through it, you're going through it too. So, but that really is what got us into the whole foods diet. Yeah.
So how long was that? Is that something that's around in Hawaii? I've never heard of that. Was it there for a long time?
The program itself has been around for maybe 15 years, 20 years maybe.
Seems like something they should be doing here. There's that at-risk youth or detention facility in Hastings, and there's all those farms.
Yeah.
Seems like a really good idea here.
There's been a lot of, recently, there's a lot of companies doing this with like after school programs. So they'll have, they'll try and teach kids that are kind of struggling gardening techniques. And you can learn a lot from gardening. And that's a big part of why we called it the Village Garden. I think there's a lot of that can relate to your life through gardening and through growing your own food. And I think there's a lot of parallels between owning a business, especially, and, having a garden.
Yeah. Plus it gets kids, they get their hands dirty. Like,
Yeah,
they're in
great.
the dirt. I mean,
Great.
I grew up in a small little farm town in Wisconsin, and, we were always outside. We were playing and everybody was getting in the dirt, and what a great idea.
I mean, kids are really detached now too, especially with, technology. They're always on their phones just to be able to like
and parents are
disconnect.
so worried about them being clean all the time and not touching anything. And so I love that idea that you did that you worked with them.
It was really cool. It was a great experience, and I love living in Hawaii, and that's kind of where we first had our first acai bowl, our first poke bowl, and when we came back to Florida, this was before that whole craze. So
So when was that?
this would have been in 2015, 2014 probably. We started Big Island Bowl started in 2015, so it was probably 2014 we moved back. Yeah.
And it's pronounced acai.
Acai.
I gotta hear it.
We
from
get
the
everything. We
expert.
get acai. We get it's acai. It's a Brazilian berry that there's a part of the rainforest very small part of the rainforest that it grows in. So they freeze the berry and then they ship it over, and that's kind of what acai is based off. But it was really interesting that the surfers from Brazil, because Brazilians are big surfers, brought it to Hawaii first, and a lot of trends move west to east. So while we were leaving Hawaii, we noticed when we were in California, all these acai places were opening up everywhere. We're like, well, that's interesting. We never really thought of even owning our own business, but it was kind of like we noticed it. It was more of we wanted to find the food that we like to eat. So that's what kind of started everything.
And so what's the big deal about acai? It's like a superfood, right?
It's a superfood, yeah. It's got, twice the antioxidants of blueberries. It's really good for your skin. It's really good for your overall health. The acai is great, but we do a lot of like the healthy toppers as well. So, I mean, it's just more about eating whole foods. It's more about eating like foods that are not processed.
Right.
So as long as you can do that, that's great.
So you left Hawaii. How did you decide to leave? I mean, why would you leave Hawaii? It sounds like you loved it.
I know.
Was it cost of living or?
No, actually, me and my wife, we had an interesting, because when you were working on site, you lived on site with the kids. So you worked for a week and you'd off for a week. And me and my wife actually lived in the back of a Bronco for. So I
feel like this might be a whole show.
Oh yeah,
right there.
We would like.
I need to bring Kelly in, and we'll have Bronco story.
Because if you looked at her, you wouldn't think that she would ever live in the back of a Bronco.
No, you would not.
We would do like Airbnb rentals and too along the way, but I mean, a lot of it is camping. The Big Island has a lot of really cool off the map places where you can go and just kind of set up a camp. And for me, that's, I'm a surfer. Finding an open break is the most important thing. So
yeah,
we would go out, and the Bronco can get anywhere. We would take it off roading. It was fun. It was a different life.
But you left.
Yeah. I mean, you get to a point, I think, where,
you want a shower?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You want a toilet?
I mean, professionally, we'd reached a spot where we were camp leads, and which is like, you have different stages you go through as a counselor, and I didn't know where we wanted to go with this. We could have stayed, and we could have possibly kept doing what we were doing, but I think Hawaii too, the time difference is really tough for a lot of people, because when you're going to bed, people are getting up.
You can't call home.
You can't call home. It's like you're very disconnected. Even if my parents live in New York, it's tough because it's not as tough because you're on the same time zone.
Yeah. I
think it was mostly family stuff. Yeah.
So you decided to come back, you and Kelly. And how did you then decide to start a food truck? How does one start a food truck?
Well, when we first started, there were very little food trucks here. I think there was maybe Nalu's had been around forever.
But there were food trucks in other parts of the country. Like California had tons of food trucks.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just that here there weren't any, right?
Yeah. And even Jacksonville. Jacksonville had a pretty strong community, not as big as it is now, but it was definitely, pretty solid. And St. Augustine maybe had 3 or 4. And it was really difficult to start off at first because there was such strict regulation of where they could set up, what you could do, and that was the biggest hurdle to overcome.
How do you start a food truck though? Like do you have any history in food service?
I had no history in food service
And
whatsoever.
how do you just get out of the gate?
Well,
How do you know how to what to put in the truck? How do you know how to do any of that?
trial and error.
Google,
Yeah,
right?
Google. My wife, she's the cook. She's a really great cook. She always has been. I think, you can look at what other people are doing too. That helps, and there are great resources out there. I mean, I've read plenty of books, but just talking to other food truck owners is probably the best way to start.
So you hooked up with some people in Jacksonville who kind of showed you how to do it?
Yeah, they took me under their wing, and they were kind of like, this is who you need to call for this, and this is the government agency you got to go talk to for that, and it's it's a lot of bouncing around though, and I would say as far as the actual setup of owning a food truck is harder than opening a restaurant, because I have a restaurant in Gainesville as well, and it seems the food truck was way harder just to get the licensing for.
Well, I wonder if that's because food trucks are still, even though they've been around for a while, the regulations haven't caught up, and so with the industry, so they don't really know where to slot food trucks in. So I know from a planning and zoning perspective, you and I worked together to try to find you a space for the food truck park, and it was so hard because nobody really knew what to do with you.
Yeah.
What do we call this food truck park? Is it a restaurant? Is it a campground? What is it?
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe it's difficult to set up a food truck because there just isn't really a slot to put you in. You're really not a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's, different cities handle it different ways.
Yeah.
So, a municipality can look at something and say, well, they do it this way. But meanwhile, a whole nother city can do it a completely different way.
And I think a lot of them just don't have any regulation at all.
Yeah.
So they don't want to tell you can, but they don't want to tell you can't. So they just default to go, no, we can't do that.
That's 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So you started Big Island Bowls with your first truck.
First truck.
Right?
Yep.
And what's I know you serve acai bowls and poke bowls. Is that the claim to fame?
Yeah, we have a whole smoothie menu too. We don't add any ice, and it's all whole fruits. Our smoothies are really good too. Yeah.
I know I have a friend whose daughter likes your smoothies.
Oh,
I think.
nice.
So that was in 2015?
2015 was probably our first year, and we started just going to farmers markets. We would do some odd events here and there. Whenever we would get phone calls to set up at someone's house or an event or a concert, something like that.
Was there back then some sort of coalition or place where people who wanted a food truck park at their event could go, or did they have to just run into you somewhere and say, oh hey, we want you to come?
At that time, I don't think there was. There is now. There's a couple organizations now that have cropped up and are taking over the market as far as that goes. As bookings, people come and book things. But even now, still, I mean, the best way to reach out a food truck is to actually reach out to them directly, because these booking agencies do take percentages off of what they book for us.
Like Yelp and Uber Eats take percentages as
exactly.
Well. Yeah.
Everybody wants a cut.
Yeah. So you had the food truck, and then I think you and I met when you tried to get permission to do a food truck park in St. Augustine Beach, and I was on the planning and zoning board. And as you know, I thought it was a great idea, but you didn't have success in convincing the city of St. Augustine Beach to allow you to come in anywhere.
Yeah.
And again, I think that was because they just didn't know what to do with that.
I mean, we went through, I think it was almost 8 months of those meetings. We start through planning and zoning, and then we had gotten approved to planning and zoning, went to the commission board. They approved it the first time, which we thought we were done after that. We're like, oh, we got the approval.
The beach?
Yeah, we were done. And then I had just happened to show up at the last meeting where they were going to do the reading. And that's when we got some pushback from the restaurants in the area. And that's when the commission decided to overturn their original ruling.
And I do commercial real estate, and my specialty in commercial real estate is restaurants. So you and I have talked about this before, but I talked to restaurant owners when you were trying to get your food truck park.
Yeah.
And I asked one he's one of the godfathers of the restaurant scene here in St. Augustine, been in business for 40 years and trained all the chefs. And I said, hey, what do you think of a food truck? If a food truck comes in next door to your beach restaurant, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm in the restaurant business. If I'm afraid of competition, I need to get the hell out of the restaurant business.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then I talked to another big restaurant owner in St. Augustine Beach and asked him, and he said, I love that idea. We'll get a food truck. It'll just expand our brand.
Yeah.
So the pushback that you got from restaurants, in my opinion, was restaurants who were afraid that they couldn't evolve and give their customers what they want.
Yeah.
The restaurants who knew that either you weren't going to be competition for them at all, or they knew that they could compete somehow and they could step up their game, they weren't worried.
Yeah. I mean, that's typical. I mean, even for another food truck, I mean, we gather in big groups. We do these food truck rallies. So, I mean, the reason we all get together is because it'll create more, traffic for all the food trucks.
Right.
But you are competing against other food trucks. You have to have, to be confident in what you're selling.
Yeah. And you got to change your game if it's not working.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's the whole point of, the free market.
In my opinion, it is not government's role to protect a certain business category. If the free market says, well, we're just tired of this, we don't like this anymore, we'd rather have this, that's not the government's role to protect that first business. So I disagreed with what the city of St. Augustine Beach did in turning you down, because I just thought competition is great, and if people didn't want what you were doing, you wouldn't stay in business, right?
Exactly.
And to me, a food truck park is almost more competition for a drive-through restaurant than a big sit down.
Yeah, when we did our research on it, I mean, we compete more with fat, like you said,
fast
quick
food.
Service restaurants is what they call them.
Yeah. So you got turned down at the beach, and then I know we talked to the city of St. Augustine, and they couldn't really figure out what to do with you, and so the answer was basically, no, we don't think this is going to work anywhere.
Yeah.
You could have done it someplace where you had really heavy industrial zoning, which is like truly an industrial park that nobody'd want to go there. You have no visibility.
No.
So that didn't work. And then you found this parcel where you're at now at the corner of 312 and A1A by Aqua East.
Yeah. I mean, our goal was always to be as close to the beach as possible.
Right.
I mean, that's what our food kind of lends itself to.
Yeah.
And then, we found this parcel, and it was an old abandoned building. I think it was a restaurant at one time.
It was a bar, actually.
It was a bar,
a bar.
Yeah, a biker bar, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So the building was old and abandoned. I mean, it was about as bad as I've ever seen a piece of property. It was pretty ugly.
Yeah, it was ugly. That's a good term, ugly.
So then we started renovation on that, and that was a whole endeavor in itself.
So that's a county parcel, and the county finally, we got the chair of the county commission to get on board with you, and the county figured out a way to allow you to do a food truck park in the location where Village Garden is at right now, and that was a big win.
Yeah, that was huge.
The chair of the commission, which was, I think it was Rachel Bennett at the time, right? Yep. She got behind you.
Yeah.
She believed in you.
Yeah.
And you had to go through a couple big meetings to get the zoning changed.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't all smooth sailing. We definitely had some pushback from the neighborhood, and it was, but we got it through, and it did. It was just, you just keep going and you keep trying, and if it doesn't work, you try something else, and just keep going.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with your perseverance. Most people would have given up. You got so many no's.
We thought about it a couple times.
Well, if I remember correctly, Kelly took a wagon and flowers and went around walked the wagon around to all the neighbors, introduced herself, talked about what you guys wanted to do, and gave them a flower, right?
Oh yeah, she's got her own. How
can you be against Kelly doing that?
I couldn't. I never could. Yeah, she definitely had her own way of. And I'm really what we were doing too. I mean, like I said, that piece of property was old and decrepit. I mean,
it was really bad.
Breathed new life into that whole section of town right there. I mean, in our little plot.
And I think it's important for people to realize that when you bought that property, you didn't know that you could do a food truck park. It was a huge risk for you.
Yeah.
You had no idea that you'd get the permission. But what you could have done is opened a bar, a full service bar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was what it was licensed there for.
With full alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, the place before us had I think it actually had a 4 COP. So
yeah, they did. They had a 4 cup.
Beer, wine, and liquor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wasn't really our goal. And our goal was to provide good quality food at a reasonable price to the residents and, visitors as well.
So you got permission finally from the county to do the food truck park. And then When the food truck park opened, don't you also have a kitchen for other food truck parks, or did you take that out of there? Did you do a commissary kitchen for other, not food truck parks, but other food trucks?
We did, yeah. That was a big part of it. We had actually been set up at Mojo's before then, Mojo's Tacos. And one thing that we really struggled with was like keeping inventory. So I mean, it's great to be busy, but if you're having to constantly bring stuff in, we don't have any storage area, that's a big problem. So we built the design for the food truck park was to have a commissary kitchen with a walk-in cooler and shelving space to store food, and we could prep in there as well. Most of the cooking that takes place in the food truck itself, but prepping and storage area for the commissary.
But talk about the commissary kitchen requirement for all food trucks.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest hurdle for any food truck getting into the business is finding a licensed commissary. So every truck needs to have a licensed commissary where you can, and it makes sense, a place where you can, get fresh water, dump your wastewater, a place where you have storage for food as well, a place where a inspector can come in and inspect to make sure that everything's, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So you provide that space for trucks, even if they're not at your park, they can use your commissary kitchen?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually become a big part of our business is licensing new food trucks. There's a lot of trucks coming into the market now that, they are doing events, but they still need a commissary kitchen. So we'll license them, a monthly fee. And then we also can rent commissary hours to them. So if they want to do cooking in the commissary, they can do that. We can rent them storage space. It's become a big part of the business.
So you're growing the industry as you're growing your food truck park.
You're
actually growing your competition.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, you kind of learn things along the way, like what's working, what's not working, where the need is, and you try and fill that need. Yeah. That was a big need that we saw is like these people want to open food trucks, but they can't find anywhere to license them as a commissary.
Where would you go if someplace like yours wasn't around? Can a restaurant do that? Can you use a restaurant kitchen?
A restaurant can, yeah. So a restaurant can say, I want to license. The issue with that is a lot of people that are in restaurants, they don't own the buildings. And they have to go through their landlord to say, I want to bring another restaurant in, another food truck to license them as a commissary. And a lot of landlords won't do that. That's at least what I've heard in the industry. There are places in Jacksonville that are just commissary kitchens, so they don't operate as a food truck park. You just rent out their space. They have storage for the trucks and that. So, but that's a whole different business up in Jacksonville.
How much does it cost to equip the average food truck?
Man, they'll range. I've seen trucks that are $200,000 trucks. I mean, you can get pretty crazy with them pretty fast. I would say typical truck, maybe 20,000, 20 to 30,000, something like that. You can go cheaper. You can do it yourself, but usually you'll pay for it in the end.
Yeah,
like
as always. So how many people does a truck fit? Like is 2 the max usually to just work around, or it's such tight quarters.
Yeah, it depends on the layout. I mean, most trucks 3 to 4 people would be max.
You can fit 3 to 4 people working in a truck?
Oh yeah, everyone stays in their own spot. This is it. This is your your window. But yeah, I mean, it's like almost like a assembly line conveyor belt. So like everyone has their own job, and you just have to know how to move in the truck. There's definitely some limitations to working in a food truck as opposed to a restaurant. You don't have all of the great stuff you can put in a restaurant kitchen.
So I don't know if you still do, but sometimes you have a food truck that does wood-fired pizzas, right? Don't they do wood-fired pizzas?
Pele's,
yeah.
Pele's.
How do you put a pizza oven in a food truck?
Man, you'd have to ask them. I know that oven gets up to like 700 degrees or something too in the summer. No AC, it's got to be tough.
And how do you not burn the truck? I mean,
I don't know.
I think I would probably burn the truck down.
Yeah, it's we have the barbecue truck, and a lot of trucks have the smokers on the back, and for me that was just too much. We have the property anyway. Let's keep the smoker off the truck. I don't think you really have to run into a problem of things exploding or anything like that.
Yeah, you don't. I would. So let's talk about that. So you started Riptide Barbecue food truck.
Yeah.
Food truck, sorry. So the smoker is not on the truck?
No. Like I said, having the commissary allows us to do a lot more prep in inside the building and having the smoker out there, kind of it just makes things a lot easier. I mean, our smoker's pretty big. It's it's a commercial smoker. I think we could fit like 45 butts on it or something like that. So I mean, putting one of those on a truck would be a lot
it
more
takes
of an
up all
endeavor.
your room, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how much does an average, like how many people do you serve a day in the trucks? Not in the park, but in how much volume does a truck do a day? I don't want to hear revenue, but how many people?
I mean, on a weekend day, we'll serve upwards of more than 100 guests.
In each
truck, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool. And a lot of it is too, like you said, is a different model than a restaurant. So like they're not coming, we do have seating. A lot of people do sit and hang out, but a lot of people do just take the food to go. So it is more like a quick service restaurant where you have a mix of dining in and takeout options.
So here comes 2020 and COVID-19, and you have a food truck park where all of the dining is outdoors, and it can be to go, or it's designed to be to go if you want it to be.
Yeah.
Turns out you got a pretty good idea.
Yeah. We never actually closed, which was kind of nice. We took extreme precautions. My wife is very, she's very safe and very into that. So above and beyond, temperaturing all the employees coming in and wiping down all the tables every hour, and masks obviously and all that. But yeah, for us, our numbers are actually up from last year, which is good. We're a new business, so it's really tough to kind of tell how you're doing. But it's good to show that that we're hanging on there, which is good. I mean, I think as a whole, it's been tough because there are not as many visitors here in town, obviously, but the residents have really stepped up.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Do you think that most of your visitors to the food truck park come from locals, or do they come from visitors?
I do think it's a mix. I mean, we do have regulars for sure at both trucks, and that's really great because then they're people of the community. We know them, they know us, but we work with the Florida Historic, the Visitor Center. Yeah. And they've been really great in helping promote the park, promote us. And so we do get a lot of visitors, which is nice. Yeah. It's
just such a cool place. Yeah. And it has this beachy vibe. And so not only, I think it's important for people to realize, not only did you want to sell food, but you wanted to create a place where people could come hang out. Like I go there and, there's kids playing and there's shady places to sit and you can take your dog, and you wanted to create kind of a community gathering spot. And I know for us, you've hosted an event as well, which is really cool to do an outdoor event there.
Yeah, community atmosphere, that's what it's always been about. And yeah, I think that's the most important part. I mean, the reason I got into this obviously is, to promote people eating healthier and, but also to promote a community, like to bring people together. We have there's a ukulele group. I don't know if you know them in St. Augustine.
No, I don't know them, okay. But I feel like I should get them in here.
They're really great. There. They come to the park once a month and they just hang out and they play the ukuleles and people come and just watch them and, different things like that. We had
how cool is that?
Classic car show just pull up at the park one day and they lined all the cars up outside the park. It was just we didn't plan any of it. They just showed up and I was like, that's really cool.
Well, that's because I think people, you and Kelly both have this really welcoming spirit, and so to me, your whole truck park the Village Garden has that welcoming spirit. And no offense to you, but like you meet Kelly and you just have to love her.
Yeah, no. I did.
There you go.
No, she's definitely the passion and the heart behind the business for sure. Yeah. I run the numbers, that's it.
yeah, I get it. So you also at one point, though, had an iced tea company.
We did, the Florida Tea Company.
So there again, how does one start an iced tea? Like, I wouldn't know the first thing about how to do that. Did you just think you had better iced tea than everybody else?
I did. I really, really did. We did yerba mate, which is actually, it's everywhere. Guayaquil's the biggest company. But we lived in Hawaii. That was the thing we grew on the farm was yerba mate. It's a tea from Argentina. So much better than coffee. I see you drinking coffee right now.
Brendan, come on.
It's better for you. It gives you a better euphoric energy. I could give you the whole spiel, but I don't think it's worth it. But we still we started.
I don't think it's worth it under your breath, and you're probably right. Listen, my husband loves tea, so
Yeah.
one of us is
All right,
doing it.
We'll sell.
I tried to switch. I can't.
So we the first thing we did was you had to find a supplier. So we had a great tea supplier from Argentina. Flew down there, visited the farms, and
But there again, you're in St. Augustine when you did this.
yeah.
Okay, so do you just Google yerba mate tea supplier? How does that work? Because
Google is really helpful. Yeah, that's actually.
I'm just thinking I would have no idea how to do this.
Okay, so we had a brand that we really loved, that we loved. So we found the brand. This is actually a pretty funny story. We found the brand. We found the supplier that makes the brand. So I had to Google the company that owned that company. Turns out they only make that product once a year in humongous batches, like tons and tons and tons. So for us in order to order that, we had to order like a ton of tea, literally a ton.
So you actually you looked at your best competitor.
Yes.
And figured out, reverse
where their supplier
engineered
was.
how that.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
I feel like maybe that's your dad's training coming out a little bit.
But the bottled tea business the original plan actually was the tea company. The Big Island Bowls was there to help promote the tea. So we were going to take it to these big events. We'd sell acai bowls to get some revenue in, but really we were there to give away free tea because we had tea in a couple different grocery stores in Jacksonville, Gainesville, and we're just trying to promote the tea company. And the thing I didn't really realize at first is, you're in this space, you have a cold beverage cooler, which is a very sought after space in the grocery market. And we were going against things like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, these companies that had endless marketing budgets.
Yeah, and they demand the best positioning, right?
Exactly. So I mean, our goal was to eventually, hopefully, sell the company and maybe, but it never really. It was just a lot more manpower than we had at the time to take it off.
I can see the budget must be massive to have to try to go up against those companies.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing it all ourselves
can't.
too. I mean, we would go to the grocery stores, do the tastings, and then I'd go and from there I'd go to a food truck event. So it was like, we had the trailers, which was great because we could move the tea in the trailer to the different grocery stores. We were doing our own deliveries, we were doing our own distribution, and it was too much.
But you were getting some write-offs to travel to Argentina and serve?
Yeah.
When you go back to Hawaii, do you go back to Hawaii now?
We went back last year.
Okay, so do you write that off as research on acai?
I should. That'd be a good idea.
I feel like there's one thing you did that I'm forgetting.
Well, we have the store in Gainesville, the restaurant in Gainesville.
Oh yeah, you opened thank you. The restaurant in Gainesville. So is that called Big Island Bowls?
That's Big Island Bowls too. We've had that for about 4 years now.
Is it in the heart of where the students are?
Actually, no. It's actually closer to the hospital, so near I-75. We do get
where healthy people eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Perfect target. We're actually in the place that we're in is called Greenery Square. So it was an old market, old nursery market, and in there it's still a nursery. It has another health food store, like one of the top-rated coffee shops in Gainesville, and then us.
It kind of sounds like. Do you know what Armature Works is in Tampa? It's this big outdoor. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like a food hall.
Yeah.
But it's a cross between food trucks and a food hall. It's massive and it's so cool.
That is cool.
It kind of sounds like that.
Well, it really fits our brand because it's almost like you're in Gainesville, which is kind of a city, kind of not a city.
Kind of a city?
Kind of a city, kind of not a city.
Listen, I didn't grow up in Florida, so you're not hurting my feelings.
But in this Greenery Square, you pull in and it's almost like you're on a farm, which is like in the middle of, I-75's right there, but you wouldn't even know it. It's kind of cool.
How'd you find the space?
One of our regulars that would come to the food truck owned the property, and he kept, saying, this is a good spot, this is a good spot. And eventually we just broke down and went and checked it out and worked out great. So, yeah, 5 years later, and still going. And that definitely was hit more by COVID because, Gainesville is run by the students. When the students aren't there, there's no teachers, and we usually have a downturn in the summer anyway, but this summer's been especially hard. Yeah.
Is it picking back up?
It is now. We're seeing really good numbers, so I'm I'm excited. I'm hopeful at least. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think I told you one time I went to San Francisco, and there I went to this food truck park, which was in the city, and they were right next to this old building, like 3-4 stories, I don't know. And they had painted a big white square rectangle on the building, and they periodically did these movie nights in the food truck park. Are you planning any sort of events like that at the Village Garden?
I love that idea.
It was so cool.
Yeah, we had ran a couple of surf movie nights, which I thought was really cool. I like the idea of, and we kind of thought about doing something with the drive-in, with the parking lot there would be really interesting. There's always stuff.
Or bike-in.
A bike-in would be really cool. I like that idea. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with it. I mean, I say the hardest thing with a food truck park is you're so dependent on the weather. So you can plan an event,
right,
and then all of a sudden it rains you out that day.
Right.
And that's anything with any food truck industry as a whole, you
right.
know. But yeah, I like all these ideas. I should call you more often about those.
No, I think you're doing just fine on your own. You don't need my help. So what's next?
What's next? Right now we're pretty happy. We have one.
You don't want one more thing?
We do have one more thing. Actually, we do. We have a new truck that we're working on right now. I don't want to give away too much, but we're gonna do a kind of a
coffee.
We have the coffee
That's
shop.
Right, you do.
The
yeah,
coffee
you
shop.
do.
Yeah. Good
You
Karma
have the
Cafe.
Yep.
This is gonna be more like South American food. So.
What is South American food? What does that mean to you?
So not so much tacos and burritos, but something along those lines. That's all I'm gonna leave it at right now.
It seems to me like there's this theme of where can Brendan find good surfing, and that's what
my
base
life.
a business on. So
yeah.
South America means trips to South America, which means surfing.
Yeah. See, your passion drives where you go in life, and that's where I'm going.
When are you going to open a surf shop?
Oh no, thank you. No, I got a friend that owns one in New York, and it seems retail is.
New York, though. I mean, that's not where you want to own a surf shop.
We got such good surf shops here. You don't need me. They got. I'm too loyal to the ones we have here. That's why.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for coming in. I really love to talk to you. Yeah. And so we talked today about Big Island Bowls, about Riptide Barbecue as the trucks, and then the Village Garden Food Truck Park, which is there an actual address? I guess there would be for that. What's the address on that?
It's 1480 South Old A1A. So it's right.
That's a mouthful.
It is a lot. Yeah. It's right next to Safe, Saving Animals from Euthanasia, and right across from the McDonald's right there. So instead of going to McDonald's, come to the Village Garden.
Yeah,
it's local and it's better.
Near Aqua East Surf Shop.
Yep.
On A1A and 312, right at the entrance to the beach.
That's it, right there.
Yeah. Thank you. Always good to talk to you. So watch, like, or follow us on Facebook at St Augustine Chronicles Podcast or at St Augustine Chronicles. You can also find us on YouTube at the St. Augustine Chronicles Podcast. Watch, listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. And, of course, we're also part of the 904 Now stable of shows, so you can find us on the 904 Now Facebook page or download the 904 Now app. And a big thank you to Pete Melfi at the 904 Now for production of the St. Augustine Chronicles. Be on the lookout for new shows every Monday. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.